Trade unionism is shown in Hard Times as nothing better than the pardonable error of the misguided and oppressed, and as such an agent in the martyrdom of the good working men. In his novel, Dickens conveys that organised labour was so much self-deceiving agitation which in passing squashed the rights of the individuals, and that its platforms were hogged by mere politics. We may say that in his writing, and especially in this book, but also in the other books written by Charles Dickens, he excelled when satirizing the employer's habit of discrediting every rightful demands of the hands. The hands were the workers. As in that ludicrous recurring image of Mr. Bounderby, who is one of the side protagonists of the novel, about turtle soup and venison with a gold spoon, that we will see later. Dickens's criticism of a desperately harsh and unequal society is sometimes weakened to make it less uncomfortable. He was a Victorian after all. In the struggle to live humanly, the working people were exerting every kind of intelligence, courage and elasticity. The masters were blocking, curbing and denying their humans point after point. In such a situation, all are stultified. In Hard Times, we can see a kind of society which never changes. In fact, we can notice that the scenery is always the same one. The air is always full of smoke. In a few words, everything is set in a dreary scenery of brick terraces and fall chimneys. All this is reflected by the melancholic mud elephants, polished and oiled up for the day's monotony, always ready for their heavy exercise. One of the protagonists of the novel, or one of the victims, is the daughter of Thomas Gradgrind, and she's called Louisa. When you go through the novel, you will realize who Louisa is. Louisa's remembrances of home and childhood were remembrances of the drying up of every spring and fountain in her young heart as it gushed out. Something very important had been choked down in her heart when she was a young girl, and now she suffered for the lack of it. All that she knew was Mr. Gradgrind's philosophy, and his teaching could not have saved her from Mr. Harthouse's proposal. Harthouse is a bad man who proposes Louisa to betray her husband and to flee with him. So when Mr. Gradgrind saw his daughter laying desperately on the floor, he saw the pride of his heart and the triumph of his system lying an insensible heap at his feet. Some people hold that there is a wisdom of the head and that there is a wisdom of the heart, but Mr. Gradgrind had not supposed so. Only now he began understanding his mistakes, having supposed the head to be all-sufficient. He suggests still now all this very doubtfully, as if he were half unwilling to admit it even now. Instead, Mr. Bounderby remains always the same. In fact, there is no development of his character throughout the novel, and while Mr. Gradgrind recognizes his mistakes, he suffers from them and tries to modify his philosophy, bending itself to appointed circumstances and making his facts and figures subservient to faith, hope and charity. Mr. Bounderby's way of acting and thinking doesn't change. For this reason, he considers education to be tumble out of doors, neck and crop, and put upon the shortest allowance of everything except blows. He says, then, that when a man tells him anything about imaginative qualities, he knows what he means. He means turtle, soap, and venison with a gold spoon, and that he wants to be set up with a coach and six. In this, we can say that a fundamental principle of Grandine's philosophy that everything was to be paid for. Nobody was ever on any account to give anybody anything or render anybody help without purchase. Gratitude was to be abolished, and every inch of the existence of mankind, from birth to death, was to be a bargain across a counter. Life was only made up of facts, as he says and repeats, especially at the beginning of his novel, facts, facts, facts. Facts are life itself. Nothing else counts. So, Dickens' world, however, is not tragic. No. He gives hope. He gives hope, and the virtuous are rewarded, and the wicked are punished. Dickens used the novel more consciously as an instrument of social criticism and aims at a more open and direct denunciation of the evils of the time. It is not by chance, in fact, that Hard Times is dedicated to Carlyle, for in Dickens' work too we find the same criticism of the materialism and of the utilitarianism of industrial society, as in the work of the great Scottish philosopher.